threatening looks, then swift.
It's not raining in Dharamsala anymore, except maybe runs in the last 12 overs of the Dutch innings. They scored 122 of them. That is a lot of runs, almost 10 runs an over. This is Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricket Info Matchday. I'm in studio with Deep Dasgupta. We've got McClenaghan on the Zoom for us. And Deep, that finish, I mean, before we start at the start, let's start at the end there, because there were really quite a lot of runs there.
Oh, quite a few, and we're talking about one batter and predominantly bowlers who can bat. And what it also showed me was under pressure, South Africa, they looked a little flustered. You know what I'm saying? This was the first time I thought the bowlers came under pressure in this tournament. There were misfields, there were drop catches, extras, and not bowling to your lengths and your feel. I hope this is just an aberration, because this had glimpses of what we always thought South Africa were in previous World Cups. And also, like I said, I hope it's just an aberration. Yeah,
we've gone quite far ahead here. We're already talking about South Africa under pressure. Mitch, just give us your immediate assessment of that performance. Almost like a performance of two halves, or 2/3 and a third.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the pressure before I lock into that. I think Deep's exactly right. You saw at one stage Ngidi absolutely lost it at Bavumba, throwing it back in. And Bavumba actually just told him just to take a moment and just calm down. And you're right, the game looked like they were under pressure, a bit of scatterbrain going on, that dead-eye look in the bowlers' eyes, not knowing what they're going to bowl. So, look, at the end, I guess exactly right. I think they didn't know what to do. I thought Netherlands were outstanding, going at 10 and over for 12 overs, getting them to a total where I think is competitive. I really do, particularly with the seam movement that we saw and a little bit of variable bounce. We saw one go through the top from Kotsia, and then we saw Maharaj have one go underground as well in consecutive overs. So there's going to be a bit in it. Maybe it will skid on a little bit more under lights, but I think it's game on.
Okay, so game on. We're already going to the next bit, but let's just dial it back a little bit and start at the beginning of South Africa's effort. So we had that hour or so of rain and things were put on pause. Then the game reduced to 43 overs. And then they started off really, really well. Marco Jansen, Lungi Ngidi, Kagiso Rabada. What did you think of those opening passages?
Absolutely brilliant. I thought, and especially Rabada, he started off with back of length, suddenly realized there's extra bounce on that, so he kind of changed his length a bit, started bowling a little fuller. I thought the first and the second spell from all of them were really, really good, especially Ngidi, Marco Jansen and Rabada. There's obviously help on the surface. There is bounce and pace and a little bit of lateral movement as well. And I thought they were very, very good in that first half.
Yeah, and Mitch, Kagiso Rabada there picking up his 150th ODI wicket, the fourth South African to do so. He's on a list with Dale Steyn, Alan Donald, Morne Morkel and Imran Tahir. Just in general, where does he rank among those names and the performances that he's put in?
Well, he's top class, right, isn't he? He's still young, and I think he's only halfway to achieving what he's going to achieve in this game. And look, I rank him very highly playing against him. He's got a lot of skill. You can already see the work that he's doing with Eric Simons coming through. He's a little bit more accurate in terms of his lengths. He was starting to move the ball a little bit more as well, and it's really positive signs from any Rabada fans out there and any South African cricket fans out there as well.
Yeah, I guess the thing with Kagiso Rabada, Deep...
Sorry, with Kagiso also, I don't know, this is something I observed. I don't know whether you agree or not. Has he kind of slowed down in his run-up a bit? Because of late, he had that issue at trying to run in too fast or too hard and overstepping. He had that issue of no ball. It seems like a lot more control, that run-up, at least that occurred to me. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, it definitely does look a little bit more controlled. I was trying to figure, I was picking up the same cues that you were picking up, and then we got a couple of side-on shots, and that sandy run-up, that could have something to do with it, but he does definitely look a bit more balanced at the crease, and he's getting some nice snap over that front leg, which when you're running in a little bit too quick with the type of action that he's got, taking too much momentum sometimes can cause that front leg to collapse or, like you say, overstride. So he looks in a nice balanced position, nice whip over the top of that front leg, and we've seen the results.
And do you think South Africa have done the right thing using him at first change, just from what we're seeing so far?
I think so, because the kind of experience that he has, obviously, you would still want him to bowl with a new ball. But if you look at the whole unit as such, and you want to maximize everyone, then you're looking at Lungi Ngidi with a new ball, Marco Jansen, the left arm with a new ball, two different kind of bowlers altogether, and then Rabada coming in as first change. So I think, yeah, if you want to maximize the whole unit, I think that's a good call.
So all was going well for South Africa. Then they had those two really good reviews. So we've spoken about the tactics kind of unraveling, but in the beginning they made two really good calls, and at that point you would say Temba was in control.
Definitely, yes. I think he was kind of in the end as well, but at times you want the bowlers to captain their overs, and you know, you can't. You can only do so much as a captain. But I thought, in general, I like Bavuma, the leader. I like him, the captain as well. And I think more often than not in that game, he was in control, and especially the first half for sure.
And Mitch, what did you think of the way that he took those two reviews? I mean, the one, especially Quinton de Kock, there was a little bit of consultation there. Just how has Temba handled the DRS system?
Yeah, he's handled it very well. He's got some exceptional experience behind the stumps, and Quinton de Kock, who kind of feeds back to him as well. And then you've got Miller at point, who's your hype man. So they've got a nice little leadership group there in making those decisions. But basically, that decision to go upstairs for Buster later, that was a very good one. He's a guy who we spoke about on the pre-show as a key batsman for this lineup. And sometimes as a skipper, you've got to take a punt and try and hope that you might get a DRS decision in your favour, as they did. But kind of showed as well from the Dutch point of view that Bastelater, I'd just love to see him protected a little bit more. He needs to be batting when the ball's not moving around, give him that opportunity to build into the back end of the game where we can see his power shine in the death.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of that when he got in and then got out, because I thought, oh, we actually just said that he should be batting lower. So, Mitch, juggle that batting lineup around and just tell me how you'd put the top 6 or 7.
Yeah, look, I think they had Engelbach come in, and he probably could have batted a little bit higher because they've promoted him from where he was in the previous game. But at some point, as an experienced batsman, an experienced player, and Scott Edwards being the skipper, he needs to take a little bit of responsibility himself and go, well, Bastelater, yes, he's a very good player, but he's young and he's not experienced as myself. I'm going to go up the order and actually take some responsibility and give him a easier start into international cricket, knowing how powerful he is at the end. And look, Scott Edwards batted beautifully tonight in that lower position, but the conditions were a lot easier to bat in at that point in the game. So it's much like what we've been speaking about with Bangladesh. You know, you need those experienced guys to go up the order, not actually sit down at 5, 6, 7 as Shakib, Afika, Raham have been doing, and Mahmudullah. They need to go up the order, and the new guys and the younger guys need to come back down into those easier positions about like 5, 6 and 7.
Deep, we'll talk about Scott Edwards' innings, but just in terms of the tactics of their lineup, would you also say he's got it bat higher?
Engelbrecht, yes. Because I guess he came into bat 7 last game. Obviously, he's impressed the captain enough to come higher the order. And the way he was batting, I can understand why Edwards doesn't want to come up the order, especially when the seamers are bowling, because he's so good against spin. And maybe he wants to get in and face spin first rather than pace.
Definitely seems that way.
Seems that way. So I can understand that concept or that idea. But I do agree with Mitchell. Just push him a bit behind. You know, everyone should have a role. For example, how I see Bastelater is his role would be the last 25 overs, not before that. Last 20, 25 overs, he comes in, finishes the game for you. Someone like Edwards can come in because spin was introduced roughly on the 18th, 20th over, but you could always get Engelbrecht before that. Let him come at 4, then Edwards if the spinners are on, and then Bastelater at 6, and ask him to finish the game.
Yeah, and I suppose with the top order, that's a bit hit and miss at the moment. Having that protection might help. So we saw the Dutch 82 for 5. Then that dropped catch happened. Marco Jansen, it looked catchable. And Mitch, something happened. We don't know. The ball seemed to hit his chest and bobble out. And what do you think that was? And what did you make of that? Did things turn at that point?
Oh, look, maybe not at that point. I think they were still well on top. I think things turned when Van der Merwe came to the wicket, but we can discuss that a little bit later and the impetus he brought into the game. But when you're reverting back to the catch, it's actually very, very difficult to catch with those hoardings on the side of the grounds. And sometimes they're white, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're red, depending on the advertising that's behind. And particularly when the ball goes so flat, it's actually, you underestimate as a fan how difficult it is. I remember you used to being on the boundary and a certain sign would come up and I'm just hoping that the ball's not going to come to me flat, square. Just hit it as high as you want up in the sky, as long as it's not coming flat at eye level.
And then, I suppose once that happens to you, I mean, Janssen had earlier taken quite a good catch. Now it happens to you. Spotlights on you. We saw a couple of misfields. Gerald Coetzee in the outfield letting, I think it was 2 or 3, something else.
Yeah, Gerald Coetzee fielding, I know the instance you're talking about. I thought he made really good efforts to get at least a hand and a body to it. And sometimes something I got told quite early in my career as a bowler is that the way you react as a bowler to a misfield or a drop catch can actually change the feeling within the whole fielding unit. And that's what I felt actually happened. Ngidi actually reacted poorly to a couple of those, and Maharaj as well at another point. It says, if you put your hands on your hips and you stare at the fielder, I can guarantee you that the next time he goes to stop a ball or try and take a catch, he's going to be doubting himself, and you can't let doubt creep into the minds of your fielders. You've got to be able to support them. So, look, I think you can affect the whole mental side of the team, the whole spirit of the team as a bowler if you don't kind of react positively.
And that kind of scrambly body language, Deep, we also saw it in numbers, because at that point South Africa had bowled something like 16 wides. It became 21 at the end in a total of 32 extras. So extras was looking good for top scorer at one point. Yeah. What was going on there? Is it this kind of thing, body language, just the mood is not good?
That's right. And some of those things that Mitch is talking about, there were good efforts in the end. I mean, there was obviously some sloppy fielding as well. But the Coetzee thing, I think it was a cover drive of Keshav Maharaj, and he really did put in a shift there, right? But then the reaction from Keshav Maharaj was as if it went under him, kind of a thing. It wasn't. It was a good effort. And as Mitch said, it does have an effect. And I've been on the receiving end of that a few times, and I know exactly what Mitch is talking about. It does, you start doubting yourself, you start thinking, I hope the ball doesn't come to me next, And also with that catch of Marco Jansen and Dharamsala, at times it seems that the light isn't enough in the boundary areas, in the outfield. It can be an issue depending on, what time of the day and stuff like that. So it could be that as well, the outfield. There's some of the venues around the world where you think, maybe there should be a little more lighting, the outfield as well, because everything's focusing on the infield at times. So that could be another reason. But feeling-wise, it's just what Mitch said. At times that just can bring everyone down and suck the energy out of the whole side.
And we saw it with Australia when they put down those
7
6 catches or 7 catches, yeah. And also, I mean, I guess by this point in the game, so a little bit for South Africa, misfields, a dropped catch. Yeah. Then in comes Roelof van der Merwe, who... He's got that personality. He's like, I'm taking this on. I know all of you guys. You're all my teammates. Bring it. And I wonder what that little cameo of his did to them.
It made a huge difference. I think without that cameo, which is, I don't know what, 19 of 10 or so, or something on those lines, without that, I think easily there would have been 40-run shot, because that momentum, that impetus that innings needed. And suddenly you could see that rubbing onto Edwards as well. Suddenly see Scott Edwards running harder, him playing more shots, and it is infectious. And that's what Van der Merwe can do, because he's that kind of a character, And I think even though it's just 29 runs, but put it into context, I think that's more than just that.
And Mitch, he also had an entertaining little incident at the non-strikers end, kind of doing some sort of acrobatics there. The crowd were into it as well. It's a nice crowd in Dharamsala. And just, you would know, Roelof, what kind of energy does he bring to a space?
Well, I don't know him personally, but I've watched him throughout this tournament so far, and Geez, he cracks me up. He makes me laugh. He's so into it. He's so energetic. What he brought to the game tonight was pure enjoyment. It was great. It's actually probably one of the most energetic periods of play that I've seen in this World Cup so far, and I was generally excited to watch it. And you say that enthusiasm from Van der Merwe actually flowed on to Edwards. Well, it did indeed. Edwards actually ended up outscoring him in that partnership, 31 off 18, and he just kind of just went about it. But it was that intensity, it was that intent that he brought to the game that kind of shifted everything in the Netherlands' favour.
So 64 runs for the 8th wicket between Roelof van der Merwe and Scott Edwards, and then 41 for the 9th, Scott Edwards and Aryan Dutt hitting some incredible shots there. How much would that have really been a gut punch to South Africa?
Huge, I believe. I mean, suddenly you get rid of Van der Merwe and say, okay, maybe things would settle down now, and suddenly Aryan Dutt comes out, hits, was it Ngidi over mid-on or something? I was like, wow, this kid can bat as well. I only saw him bowl, but this kid can bat. So yeah, I mean, it's a feel-good factor. Call it momentum, call it feel-good factor. Now when Netherlands take the field now, they'll be feeling good about themselves. So that changes your mindset, your body language, it changes everything, and it might have the same kind of effect on the opposition as well. And that's where, even though we talk about momentum in 20-over game, but in 50 overs as well, in test matches as well, how you finish a session or an innings can have an effect on what happens post that break.
Yeah, and just before we talk about what they can carry through to the second innings, Mitch, let's have a word on Scott Edwards. You saw him at the World Cup qualifiers in Zimbabwe. He's a busy cricketer. He's always talking when he's behind the stumps. He's running really hard. 11 twos the Dutch ran. We know that's one of their philosophies. Put his innings into context for us.
Well, you know, it's one of those innings that has lifted his team out of position where it looked like it was going to be an early finish. It really did. It looked like they might stumble through to 160, 170, and South Africa would chase it down quickly. And what he did is, it was a leadership knock. It really was. Like we saw against Zimbabwe in the qualifiers, he led the unit into getting themselves into a position where they're going to be able to put a total on the board that they can definitely defend with a bit of scoreboard pressure and the way they field and the small things, like you say, they do well in terms of that intensity in those middle phases. I think it was just a classical captain's knock, and didn't take too many risks. He just timed the ball nicely and just knew his areas and didn't panic at any stage.
Yeah, I guess he's an underrated captain, Deep. We don't really talk about him, but he's got a nice amount of half centuries. He's scored 50s against England, Pakistan, West Indies, now South Africa. He's not a bad cricketer, hey?
He's not, and he's a very good wicketkeeper. He's got lovely hands, no two ways about it. And obviously, when you talk about captaincy, it also boils down to experience, and especially when you're playing against top teams like South Africa. It's also got to do with experience, but so far so good, the way he's led the side, and especially as a captain, you come to the fore when you're fielding. And so far, looking at the bowling performances of Netherlands, he's done a good job with the bowling changes, with the field placements. And the good thing is, in the last few games as well, the mindset has always been attacking. While, you know, straight away start with the slip in position, attacking fields, short mid-wicket, short covers. So I like that side of his captaincy. He's always looking to pick wickets. So yeah, and overall, as a player as well, as a batter, obviously he's got, what, 4 back-to-back half centuries, the qualifiers in June. So obviously he was in good nick, but obviously didn't score too many runs leading up to the World Cup. But
they didn't play much leading up to the World Cup. Yeah,
that's a fair point as well. But again, the way he's swept, which most keepers apart from MS Dhoni, you expect the keepers to do that. But he was in control. Most importantly, he was in control. And at the toss, he said, not happy with the batting performance so far. We need to put in an effort, a shift in there. And he led from the front. He actually did walk the talk.
Okay, so now comes his test. 245 runs to defend in 43 overs. Slightly shorter game. We said the shorter the game, the closer these teams come together. Mitch has said it's defendable. Is it?
I think it is. I surely think it is.
Not that I don't trust Mitch.
No. I agree with Mitch. Definitely yes. Because you've got the bowlers to do it. And I don't think they'll be due. So, and under lights, it will move around a bit. It will jag around a bit. And, you know, they don't have, and this is the thing, they don't have express fast bowlers, but you have those 130 nagging line length. There's a bit of, lateral movement. at times as batters, you don't feel threatened and you try and take a few more chances. And yeah, with the ball might move around a bit, and that can challenge the batters, surely.
We said South Africa's bowlers were under pressure for the first time in the tournament. Now their batters will be. They'll be chasing, and we know that that can be an area of difficulty for them. What do you expect from them, and how should they respond in this situation? I mean, given that it's 245, it's almost a middling-ish score, I would say.
Well, I think you're going to see much of the same from Quinton de Kock. He only knows one way. He's going to come out and take the game on, and that can work for South Africa or against them. If they lose an early wicket, Quinton goes just that little bit too hard, then they could find themselves in a position where they're under pressure early doors, which they haven't been throughout this whole tournament. And we spoke about earlier in the pre-show about Marco Jansen. He's coming in at 7, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on that top order as well. They lose a couple of wickets. How long do they rebuild for? If they go rebuild too long, it gives the Dutch side, who are a very good fielding unit, time to squeeze on those tight ones and build that scoreboard pressure.
Okay, so last question for the two of you. I would say what this tournament has lacked so far is a cracker, one that's got us chewing on the nails. Is this the game that gives that to us?
Well, would love to have one. We still haven't got it, like you said. Wouldn't mind at all. As a neutral, wouldn't mind that at all. But yeah, the other thing quickly is how well planned and well prepared the Dutch side is. Last couple of games we saw them going through papers and notes and stuff like that, being fed to them by the coaches and the support staff. So expect them to be well prepared for this. They would have a plan A and a plan B against every batter. So expect them to be prepared for whatever comes their way.
Yeah, that's actually the South African way. See, I've also got my paper, thrown my pen on the floor. Mitch, is this the one? This the game that we're going to say, the World Cup is now there?
Oh, look, I think this will give South Africa a scare, but I don't think it's going to give you that tight finish that you want. Unfortunately, I'd love it. It'd be great for the competition. But I think South Africa, they'll be 4 or 5 down when they get the score.
Okay, that's a prediction we're going to follow up on when we come back to you at the end of the game. While the second innings plays out, you can download the ESPN Cricinfo app. That's going to be the place that you can get all the news, the views, the analysis, ball-by-ball commentary as well on text. So do that in the innings, not break, because we've just had the innings break. You can do that as the second innings plays out. And don't forget to join us after this game for the post-show here on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday.
Stunning looks, then swift.